Shoot 'em down, turn around, come home, Mony. Hey, they give me love and I feel alright now. You got me tossing, turning, feeling nothing right, and I feel alright. I say yeah, 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 yeah. But you make me feel so good, yeah, so good. Alright, come on, alright, baby, say yeah, 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 yeah. Wake me, shake me, Mony, Mony. Shotgun, dead gun, come on, Mony. Don't stop cooking, feels so good, yeah. Hey, don't stop now, hey, come on, Mony, come on, Mony, yeah, 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 yeah. But you make me feel so good, yeah, alright, come on, so good, alright. I say yeah, yeah, so good, so good. Alright. That's Mony, Mony, yeah. Everybody. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Come on. Come on. Come on. Everybody. Alright.
Everybody knows who that is. That's one of the Jackson 5. It's well, it's Tommy Gregory Jackson, and that's his real name, Tommy James. And we got him here tonight. He's live in our studio, and we wanted to play in the sacred space the entire version of Mony Mony because it's one of his anthems. Of course, we got to get to Hanky Panky, which is probably my least favorite one because I had to play it too many times. When you're a jock, you want to play something that's long so you can go to the bathroom.
You know how many musicians hated me? I was the one that took the guitar solo in Hanky Panky. It was one of the worst guitar solos in rock and roll history.
It's the first one I learned.
Les Paul never said that. All right, we got Albert Wunsch is here tonight, and we wanted to assemble a crowd, but I want to bring something up, too, before we get into our little people here. What's changed is always really cool. Now, when you first began, we were a little bit more innocent as a country, and I'm sure even before that we were more innocent. We had the music was very, I would say, it reflected our family life, and we were innocently dating and innocently seeking to have some things that were private. Even the transistor radio was under the pillow. It was a private instrument, long before the vibrator. And we had Tommy James playing on the radio stations in New York City, where a lot of this craziness began. But he was actually from Pittsburgh, where we had
Michigan, Niles, Michigan, right. Through Pittsburgh. The band was from Pittsburgh.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, we had a lot of disc jockeys in every city. There was somebody who was either doing a dance show, some combinations, or they were just simply famous. Like Porky Chadwick was in Pittsburgh.
True enough, yeah.
And Jerry Blavat, but they weren't. Jerry Blavat came off of American Bandstand. He was one of the dancers on American Bandstand.
I didn't know that. Jerry was I didn't know that.
Yeah, Christine and Justin and.
I didn't realize.
Yeah,
that.
He was hanging around with those kids. The kids were the stars.
Sure.
Because we used to relate to them after school. We watched them. I was. in those days, I was in love with the dancers.
I didn't mean to.
No, it's fine. No.
thought
please.
there.
I just got my mind off of it.
Yes.
I was thinking about how I was relating to the dancers on the show because of the beautiful girls, and now I do it with Judge Judy, who's a cougar.
I got a feeling I took him in a different direction.
You did. All right, but I want to bring something up here. All right, the change what's gone from there to there. We used to have a record business, and now we have a music business, and that's a dramatic change. But listen to this one. This is kind of interesting. I just popped this up. AOL now has a news bureau. They don't just have carrying the news. Like CNN became, Ted Turner made it a news bureau when he created CNN. It wasn't just carrying someone else's news on cable.
Right.
He went out and hired a news team.
Journalists.
AOL just did that.
Yeah.
And they have a staff of people. They don't get their news from any other source. They create it. So now the latest one of the figures that came up on the new AOL, which is kind of surprised me. 43% of kids have been cyber bullied. Now, we didn't have cyber because we didn't have the internet back then. So what happens is there's online abuse, and what they do is they say, "I hate you," in text messaging. Everyone hates you. This is cyber abuse. Have you ever heard of that before? I mean, look at how
what they should do is kick some cyber butt, shouldn't they? Some virtual butt.
So what has changed? I mean, look at how it's gone since we've been alive so far.
Right.
From the beginning of rock and roll. To now we're into cyber bullying,
Yeah, well, I don't know. All I know is...
How would you write music for that?
Well, one of the things that I really have a problem with is that rock and roll was never meant to be... rock and roll has a social aspect to it. It's meant to be enjoyed by a lot of people, sort of like an audience at a concert. And even though when you were listening to radio, you knew that hundreds of thousands of other people approximately your age were listening to the same music on the same station. Now, everything is downloaded one song at a time. And the problem is rock and roll was never meant to be, in my view, delivered that way. I don't think, a geek at a computer, listening, to one song by himself and then deciding if he likes it or not. Now that's okay, I guess. I mean, if that's the only way you have. But it is not the way rock and roll was intended to be delivered, in my view.
Yeah. What do you think it was intended to be?
I think it was
rebelliousness was there.
Well, I think what I'm saying is that it was meant to be. It's sort of like going to a movie by yourself.
Oh, so you think you like the crowd experience?
I think the crowd experience, even when you are by yourself listening to a radio, that a million other people are listening to that same music. There was something that was a social thing, and I just one of the big challenges today, which I think is the industry is sort of reinventing itself,
right.
And one of the challenges today is getting new music in front of the fans. One of the hardest things there is to do.
Okay, now let me give you a little perspective on this side. Okay, you're on the music side, I'm on the radio side. We used to be married, now we're divorced. Radio and records are not married anymore.
Right.
The radio business didn't used to charge. Radio over the air was free because it was commercially subsidized. Television over the air was free, and music was free. All three of those things now have a price. You pay for radio, whether it's the satellite or you're paying for internet use these days, paying for the television cable, you're paying for the music download, everything. Somebody sucker punched us when we weren't looking, and yet we're mad at the gangsters who made sure that we had it free. That's what I was getting at here.
That's an interesting point.
Now, what the mob offered protection, to businesses. Your windows will be broken if you don't give me a certain amount of money every week.
Amongst other parts.
But the protection was really subsidized by their being able to make a profit. Now, I don't think that's...
Well, that's certainly correct. I think that what we're really saying, though, is that the delivery system is broken.
Right.
And because of that, the numbers, for example, that radio, when you had this network of about 24 50,000-watt AM stations across the country, all playing the same music in different cities. Chicago, Baltimore, Dallas, San Francisco. And you had this 20 or 30 stations across the United States.
And don't forget Worcester.
Of course. Worcester is a big market,
That's
actually.
right. And for Hartford.
Right. Every one of these big cities had stations that everyone was listening to the same music. And because of that, you had these gigantic numbers of people that were buying music. You don't have that today.
No.
And that was, and of course, you had 60 million baby boom kids with money in their pocket that fueled everything. But you just don't have those kind of numbers. It never got replaced with anything analogous. There was nothing that ever replaced it properly. Everything, the formats broke down. We got 12 charts today in Billboard. You open it up, you got 12 different charts, and they don't talk to each other. And no one genre, by the way, can support itself.
It's true. Oh no! We got a book that you wrote, which we should plug on the air here a little bit.
Me, the Mob, and the Music.
And we also got a movie coming as a result of it, and a Broadway show. Tommy James.
And I think he's doing a book signing.
Oh, yes. Monday. We're going to be... can I just real quick plug?
Please.
Monday, we're going to be...
No, we're out of time now.
Okay. Take care.
For being here.
God bless.
Yeah, but I'm
going to be at Barnes & Noble in Manhattan up at Columbus Circle.
On the third floor.
Let's see, Barnes & Noble. I'll be there in the Lincoln Triangle, they call it now. 1972 Broadway at 66th Street at 7:30 p.m. Monday night. So please come down.
It's a great room, You haven't played that yet, have you?
It's a great store.
Barnes & Noble.
No, that's really, you're going to love it. They've created a little club up there.
That's what I hear.
Sound is great, and the audience is great. You're going to love it. You're going to want to work that again. And if you could make some money from it would be good. So you better sell your book.
Okay. Well, listen. we're at the Clinton, New Jersey. We're going to be there at the Clinton Bookshop February 27th at 1 p.m. So it's a Saturday. So if anybody, we're going to be doing a lot of places in New Jersey and the tri-state area, and we're going to be all over the country eventually. But that's where we're going to be first. So thanks for letting me get that plug.
No, please.
Or you can come to our website, just TommyJames.com.
Why don't you invite me to Lincoln Center? Invite me to Barnes & Noble.
Please come up.
That would be a good thing.
Would you come up, really?
Yeah. I still play records, I mean, come on.
You got that look on your face like, are you really going to come up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I show up for most things.
Okay.
What is this? You're looking at me like I'm a cripple? I do leave the house. We'll be right back. Tommy James is here. Better bring a Sharpie with you. Tommy James is here, and he's got his book signing over at Barnes & Noble on Monday night, right? Is it Monday night?
Yes, Monday night.
Okay, good.
7:30.
Yeah, got it.
Lincoln Triangle.
Al Wunsch is here, and also we got Gary Lee Schwartz. Now, Gary, you've been famous in this configuration here.
I just want to mention one thing. Tommy probably remembers me by my maiden name, Lady Gaga.
I thought you looked familiar.
And we got Ron Farber, who's the music authority. Ron, I think you worked on Tommy's career for a while.
I had the pleasure of working at Roulette with Morris Levy, with Tommy and Tommy's releases, and
sure.
It was like a reunion to see this man again.
What did you do back then? What is it
I did promotion. I worked about 3/4 of the country. I started in the East Coast, in the South, the Midwest. I was running all over those secondaries trying to get his stuff played.
He was the bag man.
In fact, I did all of that too.
Did you make the book?
No, I guess I didn't. But I was traveling incognito those days. But I had the pleasure of the first hit I ever worked was one of Tommy's records, Tighter,
right.
A group called Alive and Kicking, which was a gold record.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a thrill to do it. But, Tommy, I was just curious, how come you didn't record that yourself at that time?
It's funny. I actually started out doing that. That's where the song came from. Bob King and I wrote the tune up at my farm, and I just didn't like the way I sang it. I thought it, just something about, we had done the track, and Jimmy Wisner, as a matter of fact, did the horns and orchestrated it. And I just didn't like what I was doing, so I had this group that was managed by my wife's best friend. And
sounds like a Billy Joel story.
Doris Toder.
Doris Toder.
Her sister was one of the two leads.
Sandy was her actually her husband's sister, and Peppy was the other lead singer.
Am I going to follow this without a nav system?
Alive and kicking, and we took him into. I did the same. I did Tighter with him and brought it to Roulette, and
Russia was a smash. Really,
wrote it as a
still
duet.
Gets played, man. Big one.
Yeah.
It was so interesting in the 60s with the British invasion. It really hurt a lot of the American artists, but Tommy James and the Shondells were able to stay on the charts for so many years, even with the Stones and the Beatles coming over. And it shows your staying power and your talents as a producer, a writer, and as an artist.
Well, thank you so much.
You know what's also interesting? I hadn't had the chance to glance through the book yet, but I've spoken to a few like Gary who have said it. Mm-hmm. But Tom, a lot of it is about Morris Levy and the way he ran Roulette, but Tommy was almost like Morris's adopted son. If things weren't perfect with Tommy Morris, he really cared about this guy. He helped him out when things weren't perfect.
Well, he was his bankroll.
Yeah, yes. Right. But it was the only real artist he ever had all those years, and he really actually, for the only time in his career, he did artist development in the sense of supporting
Joey
Tommy.
D. and the Starlighters.
Yeah, but they were a year later. They were history. History.
Yeah.
Tommy's career went from '66 to at least early '70s.
So how did they make that last? And how did they make you last? What was it? What was the magic? What, in your opinion?
I think they, by leaving us alone in the studio and allowing us to really become whatever we could be, I think that really took us to another place. One of the things, I must tell you, this was really interesting. The record Crimson and Clover was probably, not only was our biggest selling record, but it was the most, aside from our first record, was the most important record I think we ever made. Because right at that moment, the industry changed from the singles market to the album market. Mm-hmm. Crimson and Clover allowed us to make that change from AM top 40 singles to FM progressive albums. And Roulette had never really sold albums before. Mm-hmm. So, we did the Hubert Humphrey campaign that year. I was out with Hubert Humphrey for 3 months, and when we left, in fact, he did the liner notes to the Crimson and Clover album. I don't know if you knew that. When we left, the big groups were us, the Rascals, the Association,
Four Seasons.
Yes, certainly. But all singles artists is my point.
Yeah.
When we got back, the big acts were Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Joe Cocker, Neil Young, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, all album acts.
Yeah.
And if we hadn't had Crimson and Clover at that exact moment,
you wouldn't be in the bunch.
I don't think we would have had another half of our career.
It's interesting how you went from Scott Muni back to Scott Muni.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
And
Murray the K even shifted over to this place here to play long cuts.
They were playing the big records with little holes in.
Hey,
Crimson and Clover was also psychedelic. I mean, you had a 6-minute version of it.
Yeah, and the thing of it was, I don't think there's any other single we ever worked on that would have done that for us.
We'll be right back. Joey Reynolds Show from New York. So how did you make that record a hit for Tommy James, Ron Farber? How did you get that thing off the ground? You said small markets.
A lot of payoffs. It would go. I just remember one time.
No, come on.
They brought me in there, and Red Schwartz, the guy that broke a lot of Tommy's records, was my boss. He brought me into it. He said, "You got to go to these." Suddenly, I went to Omaha, Des Moines, and a third city. He says, "The three of those weigh as much as a Cleveland. If you can get airplay there." And I got 2 out of the 3 of them. I went on the road. I got 2 out of the 3 markets. Came back and things like that.
So you made the charts. You made the charts.
You know what's interesting too? That group also contained a guy named, I think, Bruce Sedano.
Bruce Sedano.
He wound up marrying Donna Summer.
Donna Summer, yeah.
He was
in Brooklyn Dreams, right?
Yeah.
So there's a little nepotism.
That's always nice.
Well, we all slept with each other anyway.
I resent that.
But you know what?
All right, now wait. Yeah, what were you going to say?
I want to throw some of that. You know, Tommy mentioned before about that about the rock and roll situation with regards to like the geek who's like just like listening to the one song or whatever. But Morris Levy did a very interesting thing. I mean, he really was ahead of his time with regards to like with the K-Tel records.
Sure.
Because that's like an iPod. You pick the favorite songs you want, you put them on one album, and you had that one album that had every hit.
Well, the
which
problem
destroyed the
problem was what? What's the problem?
The artists.
Well, there was a couple of problems with that. Number one, he was ahead of his time for sure, and you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But Morris, as soon as those were called cutouts, and as soon as your record would end up on a cutout, it would be devalued by about 90%. He had no problem taking a record. I was Dragging a Line was still in the top 5, and I was out in L.A. and I heard it on an Adam 8 cutout, and which it takes it basically to a dime from $1's worth. So I mean,
after his son Adam.
And that, yes, Adam A. And plus the fact he would bootleg his own records. so he didn't have to pay it.
But, that was a good thing that he would steal from himself.
Sure.
Do you go to jail when you steal from yourself?
I don't. Well, that's a good point. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he lost the appeal, so.
All right, now you mentioned something earlier. You said that you have a farm.
Yeah.
He had a farm.
Yes, he bought me a farm.
And when he had a wedding for his daughter,
he wouldn't give you $2,000, but he'd buy you a farm.
and he had every state cop in the state of New York,
sure,
leading people into his farm for his daughter's wedding. Was it his daughter?
That's true. I know. Well, when we one of the scenes in the book, and it's going to be in the movie, is the Round Table. He owned the club, the Round Table, in New York, as well as Birdland, and and he would have Christmas parties down there that would last like 3 and 4 days. And you'd see people from the mayor's office sitting with the mob guys. You'd see, it was just unbelievable. He would, people would come and just sit, and city executives and various officials.
Because every politician wanted to be a star. You know that.
It was just an amazing array, and you've got an education.
I mean, even Bernie Carrick now has a record.
But you know what the thing is?
Don't do that laugh ever again on one of my materials. Don't ever do that again.
Oh, it's funny, actually. I actually like it.
Thank you, but don't be doing that. That drum they hit.
Now, that wasn't Tommy talking. That was Albert.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Morris also got into a few things. He started Strawberries, that chain.
Yes, when he was...
But here's the thing I wanted to bring up quickly, is that you mentioned he started the cutout business. Nate McCalla, who was his right arm, the ex-mob hitman who worked with him, Big Nate McCalla put him in the cutouts. And I remember one...
What's the cutout? You better tell me.
Cutouts were discount records. The records with the hole in it.
Thank you.
They'd buy up catalogs from companies, and instead of selling $5-6, they sold them for $1 in all the discount stores.
So when Saturday Night Fever was shipped gold and returns were platinum.
That was later on, but I'm talking 1970, 71.
Morris invented that system.
Yeah, but he pulled everybody, all his promotion men off the road.
Records.
For 2 weeks, we went off the road and had to work in the warehouse and still had our expense accounts to go load records for 2 weeks because he had such a demand.
Well, it's like Toyota. Toyota does that now.
But you mentioned about the politicians. Tommy was really the first one to take a presidential campaign and get out there and work with a candidate, for the Democratic Party, which was a very difficult
K-Tel was
position.
out of Minneapolis. It was out of Minnesota.
Yes, it was.
Yes,
it was. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, Continental Can Company.
Yeah, but
owned K-Tel. Wait a minute. Let me finish it. Continental Can owned K-Tel. Is that correct?
I probably couldn't tell you that. All I know is that Morris he started Adam 8, named after his son Adam, K-Tel. and something else. I mean,
so you got a guy who's backing the game.
Yeah, and so he would, but he was brilliant at doing this. You know, he also owned his publishing. So, you know, back in the day, the idea of a record company and a publishing company working together was brilliant because he would put out the songs that he owned.
Right, and I never got any royalties. I got my money in advance for Ma Bell. You got me by the calls, but I never got any publishing money, and I was a writer.
No, he grabbed that real quick.
Yeah.
And let me guess, you were cross-collateralized up there, too, they called it.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
And double-cross collateralized.
Yeah, double-cross. That's the better way of putting it.
I tell you, one night my radio partner and I, Rick McCaffrey, were interviewing a songwriter by the name of Tony Romeo.
Oh, I didn't know you were gay. Are you gay?
No, I'm straight.
Oh, you're a partner.
But Tony Romeo is the guy that wrote for Johnny Maestro and the Brooklyn Bridge, the Partridge Family. Great songwriter. Unfortunately, he passed on. And we were talking about Morris Levy and, of course, Tommy James and Herb Cox and the Cleftones and Jimmy Rogers, which we'll get into.
Right.
And this lady calls up and says, "How can you say these things about Morris? He built a hospital in Greene County." And I said, "That's true, with Frankie Lyman's royalties."
All right, so let's talk about Jimmy Rogers for a minute. He has a wonderful talent, and he had an accident.
An accident.
Yep. Okay.
Well, you know, truthfully, one of the really scary parts of being with Roulette is that you had this constant threat.
Yeah.
And if you gripe too much about your royalties, or you talk too loud,
it
or
was
you
well named,
pump somebody off,
named by Jimmy Rogers,
yes,
called Secretly.
That's right. Well, Jimmy Rogers was an artist who basically wouldn't shut up.
Yeah.
And he wanted his royalties, and who could blame him, right? So in the end, he was left for dead on an L.A. freeway in the early 60s by some very dangerous people who dressed up as cops, and that's a pretty well-known and notorious story. He never fully recovered from it.
And it never caught the people. It just disappeared.
That's right. So, this was, and it was understood that stuff like that could happen to you if you took this thing too far. So I was always very aware of these things. And let me tell you, having a career in pop music around that kind of environment was very tricky. And although I'm very thankful on one hand, that's what I meant by saying I'm very thankful on one hand to have the freedom and creativity we did, but on the other hand, there was this implied threat nearly continuously, and several times it got really out of hand.
In the book, your comment about you're going to do to me what you did to Jimmy Rogers.
Yeah.
Did you say that? Did you ever say
that in the book?
Wow.
And then you realize how stressful everything was happening with Tommy James. Your psychiatrist was more paranoid than you were.
Yes.
When he went to Morris and he bitched about the gun, which was really a misunderstanding.
Sure.
What about the gun? Well, you got to say
he was a gun collector, and then
Who was Tommy?
Tommy was a gun collector.
Really? Well, that would scare the bejesus out of Morris, wouldn't
Except
it?
Morris was also a gun collector.
Oh.
And Morris liked to shoot also. So and Tommy was a gun collector, and he was talking about this animosity he was having. There was a lot of frustration going on with Morris because of the fact he wasn't getting his royalties, he wasn't getting the money he should have been getting.
So Morris is paranoid all this time because it's like. So I'm slowly going crazy myself, and finally I literally am having a talk with a shrink.
Sure,
it's a true story, and it falls out of my briefcase. So he goes to Morris after all this and says, I think maybe you better concern yourself a little bit with Tommy. And, of course, that was not the implication at all. But, of course...
And it wasn't the right thing to say to Morris.
No. Oh, God, no. But it's like... Look, there were red flags right from the beginning that should have gone off on me. We get to New York, the record Hanky Panky explodes out of Pittsburgh, and
That's all right.
Explodes out of Pittsburgh, and we.
You're looking behind you. Morris is not coming back.
Right. Okay.
There's no sequel.
I thought maybe there's something.
No, there's no sequel here. But look, we've got to take a break before you do this thing.
Okay.
I want you to know that we were going to do the show tonight. We didn't want to have this kind of tension. We were going to do this in a confessional, but the priests were using it for immoral purposes. We'll be right back. Tommy James is here, and he's live. Thank God he's alive. And we're talking about Morris Levy at Roulette Records and the mob in Tyler Genevieve's family, which was the fuel behind that car. And it was a front for the families who were protected by other families. It's interesting how Tommy has opened up now that all the family members are dead.
Real brave, aren't I?
Yeah. So anyway, you were saying, I stopped your train of thought here.
Well, I was just going to say that the Hanky Panky story really was should have light bulbs should have gone off. The record happened in Pittsburgh and was a real fluke, and so we had a regional breakout in all the trade papers, and so I get called to Pittsburgh out of total obscurity and just flipped me out and pulled out of Niles, Michigan, rescued, I guess.
Yeah.
And 2 weeks later, I'm in New York, and we're selling the master to a label. So we were just thrilled because we got a yes from everybody. We went to Columbia, and right off the bat, the yeses came. Epic, Ronald Luxembourg, as a matter of fact, at Epic, and Atlantic, and
Jerry Wexler,
Redbird, yes, and Atlantic,
Golden again.
Right. So we go to the last place they took the record that day was Roulette. So I go back. We're saying it's a City Squire, and I'm just on cloud nine because it's a matter of where do we go. So one by one, the next morning, all the record labels call back and they say, "Listen, we got to pass." What do you mean you got to pass? Oh, yeah. I mean, we just had a deal. What are you talking about?
I know.
So finally, Jerry Wexler at Atlantic levels with us, and he said, "Listen, Morris Levy called every one of the record labels and said, 'This is my record. Back off.'"
How did Chuck Rubin react to that?
And they did. Well, he was one of the guys.
Who was he?
Selling.
Who was Chuck Rubin?
He and Bob Mack and I sold the record. We literally did our
He
song.
was also your
dance.
agent.
Yes, a booking agent, right. So, boy, this is your life. I love that. It says, "Now, Tom," when you... Anyway, so...
You're writing the book.
No, your wife didn't say that. She said that. So, anyway... red flag should have gone off, and we were apparently going to be on Roulette.
Yeah.
And
whether you liked it or not,
yeah, so
you're playing Roulette.
I'm on Roulette,
Russian Roulette,
and Roulette already had a taste of picking up a hot master and breaking it nationally with Joe Jones. You talked too much a couple of years before, 5 years earlier.
Well,
that was a master in New Orleans that made a national record.
That was Jimmy Jones' problem. I mean, Jimmy Rogers.
No, who was that?
Joe Jones.
Out of
New Orleans.
But Jimmy Rogers had.
They were always looking for a hot master, and you had it.
Well, and then of course once we got up there, then the next big thing I remember is I was signing the deal. And right in the middle of meeting Morris Levy, who's right out of Central Casting. I mean, really, with the voice and everything, And I can't take my eyes off this guy. I'm just amazed. I can't believe we're doing this. So finally, two thugs walking the out. First, it was Nate McCalla and Big Dom up there. Said, "Morris, can we see you?" And he goes, "Excuse me." I don't know where they learned to talk like that.
That's great. The Jews and the Italians sounded exactly alike.
Yeah, right. Do that well. So he gets up, and in the room is Murray the K, Red Schwartz, Henry Glover, George Goldner.
Yeah.
they're all sitting there in the room, and I'm hearing this, this conversation of they just beat up some guy with baseball bats out in Jersey for bootlegging records, and he's like, "You do what you gotta do." so, and I'm listening to this, and Red Schwartz says, "So, your first trip to New York, Tom?" Trying to make small talk, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, first trip, yeah." And he comes back and sits down. And, I mean, that should have been red flag number 2, but we went ahead and signed it.
So there was a lot of hanky panky.
And
we ought to, in a sense, before we end this, we got to play that.
I suppose that's true.
Before you do, I got a
that's your beginning mantra song.
Yeah,
and we got to play that. I mean, you got to play a little bit of it.
Also, Tommy was excited that Adam Levy in Kindergarten got co-writer and co-publishing credit. That really.
They were so hot in the summer of 1970 with the publishing and Tommy stuff and Tighter. They had a boat ride, Christmas in July. They rented the big Hudson line.
Oh, that's right.
The boat was so crowded.
The Circle
there was no room for Tommy. He came and said, "That's our star. We couldn't get him on the boat." And it never left the dock. It was almost ready to sink. There were thousands of people on there.
Yeah, that's true, man. Well, all I can say is that, Roulette was the best and the worst in history. I had more fun there, and I sincerely miss the action that was there, and I miss the people.
Yeah.
There's just a handful of us left. Morris's secretary, Karen, is still Herbie Rosen, who is the great record promoter, and there's a few of the Roulette people that are still around. Norman Kurtz, the lawyer, the in-house lawyer, and so we pal around together, and they're really going to be involved with us in promoting the book and the movie, and I'm so glad to have them.
You're paying homage. You're paying homage to Morris this way. I mean, I every year I go to his grave and put free goods on it. Just for you to know.
That's good. That's a good line.
With the corners cut off.
Free goods, right.
Now, you're not going to have you laugh at this, are we, Al?
I found that humorous.
Thank you. Are we going to have a little reunion of everybody who's left?
I think that's a great idea, actually.
The three of us will meet we don't have phone booths anymore.
No, but listen, I think it's a great idea to just, have a party.
Casino.
Yeah.
I tell you in the book.
Oh yeah, speaking of that, I want to ask you about that. What about Las Vegas?
I'm going to be out there.
Where? Because we're on the air there. We're on at 6:70.
Well, it's an affair at the House of Blues.
Good for you. Good for you.
March 16th.
And you pull out your famous guitar licks.
I will.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Terrific.
Well, we're touring all over the country, and if folks would like to, we're going to post all the dates this next week, and if somebody would like to come to our website and hang out.
Which is what? Where is it?
TommyJames.com.
That's it?
That's
you
it.
mean you have your own name? Mm-hmm. Really? How did you get your own name?
Nobody else wanted it.
Oh. All right. Hanky Panky, we got to get out of here with this.
Baby does the hanky panky.
This is my record. Back off.
Thanks, Morris. All right. You know what? Gary Lee Schwartz wants to ask you something before we get out of here. Come on, Gary. What was it you want to know? But that's the famous Tommy James record.
I'll tell you.
We've got to get his mic on.
Okay, in reading this wonderful book.
Which is called what?
Me, the Mob, and the Music.
Thanks, guys.
It's a great book. I read it 3 times.
Thank you very much.
But I do have to say, you had love and fear for Morris. When he was dying of cancer and you couldn't get off the road, you couldn't concentrate on your appearance that night because that part of your personality, the love was coming out.
Well, that's true. And when he died, the last scene in the book and the movie is really going to be sort of an imaginary conversation I had with him because I was never going to have a real one, because he had passed away that night.
Yeah.
And the night, and I couldn't get back. I was going to get back the next morning, and he went that night.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I had a healthy respect for him.
Yeah.
Because I had really met with him as a disc jockey,
mm-hmm.
and I also met with him as a recording artist. And I liked him very much because he's charming and he was fun and he made me laugh.
Sure.
And he also gave me a check, which is kind of
that
nice.
always helps.
And it cleared. So that's always good, I mean, even though at this point in life or death, Morris Levy has 3 friends on Facebook, But I want to thank you for being here tonight. You're great, and I'm so happy that you came here.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for all your help with the book. It's great.
It's your first stop, isn't it?
It is.
Well, I hope you come back here after you get through with the tour, because I want to hear how it went with all these other jabronis.
Sure, absolutely.
And thanks to Ron Farber, Music Authority, for being here tonight, and also Gary Schwartz.
Thank you, Joey.
And Albert
nice
Wunsch.
meeting you finally, Tommy. You're the best.
Nice seeing you. Thanks.
And you are. I mean, you're great. God bless
thank you. Really, I appreciate this very much.
Keep coming back.
I'd love to.
Well, smile be your umbrella, but don't get a mouthful, right?